You ever notice how the second you click your seatbelt, you might feel just a little more comfortable hitting the gas? Or how a skier with a helmet seems to just fly down the mountain, maybe a little faster than everyone else? Well, today we're diving into a really weird paradox of human nature. It's called risk compensation, and it's all about how the very things designed to protect us can, in a strange twist, actually make us more reckless. Okay, so to really get this, let's start from about, 13,000 feet up. Skydiving. I mean, it's pretty much the definition of a high-risk activity, right? And over the years, the gear, the parachutes, the harnesses, all the safety devices, they've become incredibly advanced, super reliable. So you'd think the number of accidents would have just plummeted to near zero. But it's not quite that simple. This quote from a skydiving pioneer named Bill Booth just nails it. It gets right to the heart of what we're talking about. What he noticed was that as the equipment got safer, skydivers didn't just sit back and enjoy that extra safety margin. Nope. They started doing crazier stuff, more complex formations, faster, more aggressive maneuvers. They were using that safety net to push the absolute limits of the sport. It's like they were unconsciously trying to keep the risk level exactly the same. And this isn't just some weird quirk you see in extreme sports. It's actually a fundamental part of how our brains are wired. And of course, it has a name. So here's the key idea. We don't just passively accept safety measures. We react to them. When we feel more protected, we tend to take more chances. It's like we spend our newfound safety on other things we want, like going faster or saving time or, just having more fun. And this idea first caused a huge stir in the world of road safety. So for that, let's jump in the time machine and go back to the 1970s. This is when a lot of the modern car safety features we know today were first becoming mandatory. So in 1975, an economist named Sam Peltzman just drops a bombshell. He publishes this study claiming that all those new regulations, seatbelts, padded dashboards, collapsible steering columns, had basically done nothing. He said they produced no net decrease in highway deaths. His whole argument was that because drivers felt safer, they just drove more recklessly, and that canceled out all the technological gains. Now, this is where it gets really interesting, because this is how science is supposed to work. Peltzman's original claim was shocking, and it turned out to be wrong. Later on, people found errors in his data. And I mean, the numbers are crystal clear. U.S. road fatalities have dropped like a rock since the 60s. But, and this is a big but, Peltzman wasn't completely wrong. The effect he was talking about is real. It's just not 100% offset. People do compensate, but the safety features are just so good that we still come out way ahead.
So this brings us to a more psychological way of thinking about it. I want you to imagine you have a thermostat, but instead of for temperature, it's for risk.
A psychologist named Gerald J.S. Wild called this risk homeostasis. The whole theory is that every one of us has this internal target level of risk that we're comfortable with. So if a safety measure makes things feel less risky than our target, we'll actually behave more daringly to get that feeling of risk back up. And on the flip side, if a situation feels more risky, we'll get super cautious to bring it back down into our comfort zone. And this is basically the subconscious math that's running in our heads all the time. We're constantly weighing these things. On one hand, you've got the benefit of risky behavior, like speeding to get somewhere faster. On the other, the cost, like a big old speeding ticket. Then you weigh the benefit of safe behavior, like getting an insurance discount, against the cost, like the time you lose by driving slowly. This internal calculation is always running, tweaking our behavior to hit that personal risk target. And there is no better, more amazing, real-world experiment for this theory than what happened in Sweden on September 3rd, 1967. They called it Dagen H, or H-Day. At 5 a.m., the entire country, all at once, switched from driving on the left side of the road to the right. Overnight. You'd expect total chaos, right? A complete disaster. But look at this. In the immediate aftermath, the accident rate absolutely plummeted. Why? Because every single driver suddenly felt like the situation was incredibly risky. Their internal risk thermostat was cranked way up. So they compensated by driving with extreme caution. But of course, as people got used to it, their feeling of risk dropped back down, and within 2 years, the accident rate crept right back up to where it was before. Wild, right? And this risk thermostat of ours, it isn't just for driving. Seriously, once you know what to look for, you start seeing its effects absolutely everywhere. So let's just run through a few quick examples. Everything from car tech and sports to massive public works projects and even healthcare. So there was this famous study in Munich where they took a fleet of taxis and split it in two. Half got anti-lock brakes, half didn't. You'd think the ABS cabs would be way safer.
Well, after 3 years, the crash rates were about the same. The drivers with ABS knew they had this technological safety net, so they just drove more aggressively, braking later, following closer, and basically canceled out the benefit.
And helmets? Oh man, helmets are a fascinating and really contentious example. Some data suggests skiers who wear helmets just go faster. When hard-shell football helmets came out, players started using their heads as weapons, which actually led to more injuries. And get this, one study even found that drivers give cyclists who are wearing helmets less room when they pass, almost as if they're subconsciously thinking, that person's safer, they don't need as much space.
Risk compensation can also happen on a massive society-wide scale. Think about building huge levees to protect a city from floods. Well, that makes people feel really safe, and that perceived safety encourages developers to build more and more homes and businesses right there in the floodplain. So then, when a truly massive, once-in-a-century flood does happen and the levee fails, the disaster is way, way more catastrophic than it ever would have been otherwise.
And you even see this effect pop up in public health. The theory suggests that when you have interventions like condoms or preventative medicines like PrEP that reduce the perceived risk of getting sick, some people might engage in riskier behaviors. It's a phenomenon called behavioral disinhibition, and it can offset some of the incredible life-saving gains that these public health tools give us.
Okay, so all of this brings up a pretty big, pretty obvious question. If we're all just wired to constantly undermine safety measures, then what's the point of them in the first place?
I mean, really, does this whole idea of risk compensation just mean that trying to make the world a safer place is a hopeless cause? Are we just doomed to find new and creative ways to be reckless no matter what?
No, absolutely not. And this is the single most important takeaway from all of this. Just like we saw with seatbelts, the evidence is overwhelming. Safety measures work. The compensation effect is real, for sure, but it's usually just a fraction of the overall benefit. Safety glasses, steel-toed boots, airbags, they all save lives and prevent injuries, even if we act a tiny bit more boldly when we're using them.
But here's the really cool part. What if we could actually weaponize this whole idea for safety? That's the thinking behind a design concept called shared space. By intentionally removing the clear lines between cars and people, getting rid of curbs, signs, even traffic lights, you make the whole environment feel a little more uncertain, a little more risky. And what do drivers do when their internal risk thermostat goes up? Exactly. They slow down, they pay more attention, and accidents actually decrease. It's brilliant. So you see, the real lesson here isn't that safety measures are pointless. It's that when we design for safety, we have to design for actual, real-life, quirky, compensating human beings, not for some idealized, flawless robot that always follows the rules.
And that leaves us with one final thought to chew on. As our cars become packed with AI, lane assist, and eventually full self-driving tech, the perceived risk of driving is going to plummet to basically zero. So, how are we going to spend that massive new safety margin? Will we be working, watching movies, just completely checking out from the task of driving? Understanding our deep-seated tendency for risk compensation is about to become more important than ever.